Hello and welcome back to the PSD to HTML flat design build. Now that we've set up our 3-column layout, we're going to move on and start styling the items within that layout. But before we get started with our CSS, we need to add something to our HTML that I forgot earlier, and that's the title for this center section, this Connect With Me column. So we just need to add that title there. So we're going to jump into our text editor and open up index.html, and everything has been moved again into a new folder, so all the changes we make in this lesson will be saved in the Site 19 folder. And I'm going to scroll down to the footer, and in our second column here, we're going to add an H2. So just after our opening column 1/3 div, we're going to go to the next line and create an H2 tag here, and the text for that H2 is going to say, Connect With Me. And then our closing H2 tag. So now let's save that, and let's go ahead and jump into our browser, refresh our page, and see how everything looks so far. So we have 3 columns, and we have a little bit of work to do to make it look right, but this is a good starting point. So I want to start with the list in our left column here. I want to lighten up the text a little bit, and again, we can look in our Photoshop file to see what we want it to look like. First of all, we want our bullet points to be flush with the left edge of our text, of our title text, and then our bullet points are going to be green and our text is going to be blue. So we have some changes to make here. Also, our text is going to be bold, and we're not going to have an underline under it. Let's go back into our code and see what we can do. So let's jump into our main.css file. We'll come down to the footer section here. And then after the column 1/3 class, we're going to skip a couple lines. And if we go back to our HTML file and look at our first column with the from the blog section, you'll see that our unordered list there has a class applied to it of blog list. So that's the class we're going to target here. So in our main.css file, we'll add a rule for the blog-list class. And in that list, I'm going to set our text color to #8EBE5F. When we do that, save our file and jump back into our browser and refresh, you'll see that changes our bullet points to that green color, which is what we want. Next, I want these bullet points to be flush with the left edge of our title text there. I don't want them to be indented so much. So we're going to go back into the blog list class there and add a couple of options here. We're going to set our padding left property to 20 pixels. If we save that and refresh, you'll see that that moves all of our items over. Now, if we set our padding left to 0, save that and refresh, you'll see that it brings those bullet points all the way over to the left so that our text is flush with the left of our text up here. And that's not what we want. We want our bullet points to be flush left. So using a value of 20 pixels instead of 0 gets us there. So we'll save that again and refresh, and that looks a lot closer to what we're going for. Then I want to point to the anchor points within that unordered list and style them. So we're going to get rid of that underline, change the color, and set our font weight to a bold font. So let's jump back into our code, and we'll skip a couple lines and create a new rule for blog-list space A. So for the anchor tags within that unordered list, we're going to set our color to 78CCD0, which is the blue color we're going for. We're going to set our font weight to 700 and our text decoration to none to get rid of that underline. So let's save that and refresh. And there we go. Now it looks a lot more like our Photoshop file, which is obviously what we're going for. Then I'm going to set a hover effect for this. So we'll skip a couple lines, say blog list space A : hover. And here we're just going to set our text decoration back to underline so that when we hover over it, let's go ahead and save that, refresh, and when we hover over our text, and that's not working, let's try that again. Let's make sure we did that right. There we go. You got to spell that right. So blog-list, and that should do it. So save that, refresh, and now there we go. When we hover over these links, we get that underline, and that looks good. Next, if we go back to our Photoshop file, you'll notice everything over here looks good. So let's jump over to this next section where we're going to get rid of the bullet points on this unordered list. Again, if we go to our browser, we can see that our icons have bullet points next to them. So let's go into our HTML first, just to remind ourselves how that one is set up. In our second column, we have an unordered list with a class of social list. And that's the list that has all of our social media icons in it. So let's jump over to main.css and let's create some code for our social list. So we're going to create a class for, or a rule for the social list class. And here we're going to set list style to none. That'll get rid of the bullet points. Then I'm going to set padding left to 0 to get rid of the default left padding that is applied to all lists. We'll save that, refresh our page. It gets rid of the bullet points and pulls our text or our icons over to the left. Then we want those to be arranged side by side, not on top of each other. So we're going to go down to the next line and create a new rule for social-list space li. So for those list items inside that list, we're just going to float those to the left, and then we'll apply some right margins to those items to space them apart a little bit. So we'll put 10 pixels of spacing in between those list items. So let's save, jump back over to our file and refresh. And there we go. We have our 4 social media icons with 10 pixels of spacing between them. So that takes care of our first 2 columns. In our next video, we'll jump over to our registration column in order to start styling it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you then.